the sympathy, if not the active support, of the majority. You cannot go off by yourself because you have a righteous cause and think you're going to succeed. So it's not just the rightness of your cause, it's the strategy, okay, that you put together, dealing with the reality. So you have to do research. Don't start anything unless you start getting yourself some information and some accurate information. Not no hints and not no hunches. I got a hunch. No, your hunch won't get you there. I'm fired up. Hey, cool down and get to the library. Okay? Like an example, when we came, a lot of research had been done. One of the things we found is that 42% of the black people in Chicago were either first or second generation from Mississippi. I used to just ride on the west side and stop at the service station, say, hey bro, what's going on, man? I said, when last time you been home? He said, I was home about 2 weeks ago. Which way you go? Natchez Trace? Yeah. So, my point is, know your constituency, the common characteristics of your constituency. I don't care how right you are and how good your cause is. You go break in there, and then that's why people give up real fast. They say, oh, these people, you can't tell them anything. Oh, they're not interested. They're too apathetic. They're a bunch of Uncle Toms and nervous Nellies. They scared. And, well, you haven't done your homework. When I went to Selma, Alabama, that's the same thing they told me about Selma. Black folks too scared, white folks too mean. They had an X through Selma, Alabama. Okay? So, communities change. Chicago is not the same today as it was yesterday when I was here. So I wouldn't come in assuming, okay, the same kind of things. One thing, you'd have a whole bunch of folks in Marquette and Gage Park. That's right. So your communities are different. You understand the politics? When I came to Chicago under Mayor Daley, the father, every community was ethnic. They were divided. Cicero, Italian, okay? Here was what? Mainly Irish, what? Yeah?
And Polish.
And Polish?
In fact, from Pilsen all the way down was Polish.
Yeah. Okay. And they were deliberately divided that way so that they could determine the patronage jobs that people were going to get. You know what I say about economics? Okay? The Italians wasn't put in a certain community just because they were Italian. It was because they wanted to identify how many jobs they were going to give them. Okay? It was all about jobs. And if you were ward committeeman, the other thing is, David didn't care anything about no, what you call no party politics. I'm going to say this to you real slowly. Mayor Daley was not concerned about no party politics. He himself was a Democrat, but do you know he had Republicans who were part of his machine? It's called the Daley Machine. And it operated on a daily and hourly basis. Okay? There were independent aldermen who Daley supported as independents. There were Republican aldermen that were part of the Daley machine. They call them Daley Republicans, Daley Democrats, Daley Independents, and Daley machine. So he didn't care about your color. He didn't care about your party, okay? So long as you're part of the machine. So that was important to understand before you got into trying to mobilize and organize people. Saul Alinsky, which is a name that some of you might hear if you study Chicago. He also organized, what is it? Backyard yards, it was called the Southwest what? You remember
I
that?
know, I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, but Backyard yards was the familiar name. It was the Southwest Community Organization or something. And also TWO, the Woodlawn Organization. The Woodlawn Organization was black. Backyard yards, white. They were all communities that he organized. And he was not prejudiced. He was just dealing with the reality of those communities. They were already white and already black before he tried to organize them. Okay? So my point is, there were common meeting grounds as well among people. And you had to be able to identify those meeting grounds. The churches were completely segregated. Yeah. And it wasn't by law, it was by neighborhood. Schools were segregated in Chicago. Not because there was a law like in the South, but that went to neighborhood schools. Okay? And you were certainly welcome to come to another school if you didn't mind getting beaten up every day. Okay? Yeah. Truth of the matter is, even in the course of our movement here, a black fellow was over in Cicero looking for a job, advertisement, and was beaten up and killed on the streets. Just by walking through the
Baseball bats.
yeah, baseball bats. By walking in the neighborhood. So, the only point I'm making in terms of the strategy and organizing, first get the information and be very clear about the different, okay, mores of the different communities. And don't ignore those. You got to be prepared. If you're going to work on something, you got to find what is it in common that they have, that they all can agree on, and then you can work on that. Okay? Now, in the meantime, sometimes you just have to work with whoever, is ready to work. But if you can get the clergy and the churches organized on one accord, that is a tremendous feat within itself. Yeah. Now, so one thing I always focused on was youth organizing. When we had the tennis unions, we discovered that while we were working on tennis unions, that there was a big issue of lead poisoning. And the children were getting lead poisoning because the peeling paint off the walls had lead in the chips. And the children would eat them. And one of the reasons they ate the chips off the wall, and don't you try this, okay? They're sweet. They have what you call a, what is it? Is it glucose?
Sucrose.
Sugar? Yeah. It has a sweet taste to it. All right? Just like the lead was lethal that they ate, it also was sweet. And how many of you know about sweet and low? You know about sweet and low?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a chemist at the University of Chicago that invented that. I met him.